Hey teachers! You may be in a position right now where you are being forced to move to online learning due to extreme weather conditions or the outbreak of an illness. When this happens, it can be really overwhelming because it seems like even more work is getting dumped on teachers. Well, take a deep breath, because I have worked in online learning for several years and I am here to help you figure everything out. By the end of this video, you will know what a typical day of online learning should look like and what type of activities you can use with distance learning. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we get into what an online schedule and activities should look like, I have a few quick tips for you. Number one, make sure that when you are creating your online learning schedule that it's not necessarily as long as a day of school. Remember, when students are working from home, they're not going to have transitions, they're not going to have resource classes, they're not going to have recess. A lot of the things they do in the classroom won't take place at home, so the day will probably be much shorter. Number two, keep in mind that just because we're calling this online learning, all of the learning does not have to take place on the computer. There's activities that you can give students to do off of the computer as well, and we're going to talk more about those in just a minute. Now, whether I'm in a physical classroom or an online classroom, I always like to start my day with spiral review. Especially if students are going to be out of the classroom for several weeks, it's really important to take time to review previous skills with them on a regular basis. Now, for my spiral review, I like to use these morning work worksheets that I created. They have math skills and ELA skills that students get to practice each and every day. Now, an important component of spiral review is taking the time to actually review answers with students. In an online setting, you can do this one of two ways. Your first option is the easiest, and that is to provide students with an answer key so that they can check their work independently. Your second option is my favorite option, but it's going to take you a little bit more time. And that is to record a video of you giving an explanation of how to solve and answer each question. Now, this does not have to be complicated. You can record the video on your iPhone and then upload it to whatever platform you are using. No editing software, nothing fancy to create it. The most important part is that your students are getting the information that they need. After spiral review time, I would move into about 30 to 45 minutes of math. And math is probably the subject that I find most challenging with online learning, just because I find that with math, students really need a lot of direct instruction. And math skills, especially as you get into upper elementary and middle school and high school, these are things that parents aren't familiar with. So one of the things that I have done to help with that problem is I have created math parent study guides. And these guides show parents how I teach math concepts in class so that way they can reinforce the math concepts at home and help students with the work at home. So I highly recommend that you use something like this if you have to go to an online setting. Now, as far as teaching the actual math content goes, you've got a couple of different options. You can provide videos, either pre-made ones on YouTube or ones that you create yourself, to students that actually teach the content. You can also use a number of free math websites that allow your students to play math games to review the information. I've included a link in the description of this video to a blog post I wrote with a whole list of free math websites that you can use during this time. And another great option for math time is project-based learning. I love project-based learning because rather than me having to search for all these different resources and videos to give my students, I put the learning in the hands of the students and those students research themselves. So a couple of ideas for project-based activities that you can use during math time. One thing that I do is when my students are learning about angles, I have a multi-day project where they have to create a mini golf course. You can do an area and perimeter project where they build their dream home. You could do a shopping challenge where they have a budget and they're working with decimals to buy certain items. But think of a large activity that will cover several days that you can use to fill that time. Next up, I would teach a 30-minute social studies lesson. And one of the best ways to do this is with digital passages and questions. I've created digital passages and questions for my students for every U.S. History and Virginia Studies unit. So this allows them to read and learn online, and then I incorporate a variety of activities for them to show what they've learned. I might provide instructions so that they can create a foldable. Project-based learning also works really, really great for social studies. One of my favorite projects is I have students research the regions of Virginia and create a marketing campaign for Virginia. You can also utilize websites like Quiz and Kahoot to create assessments to help your students review. And last but not least, YouTube offers so many great historical videos that you can incorporate into your social studies lessons. Next up, I would have a 30-minute science lesson. And science is a great time to actually get students off of the computer. You always have YouTube videos that they can watch, but there's a lot of great hands-on activities that they can do at home. For example, you can provide instructions so that they can complete simple science experiments at home. Just remember to use easy, inexpensive materials that parents likely have on hand. Another thing that I love to do is have students create research books. For example, you might have them go out and look at the moon phases every night and make a book about that, or research the planets in our solar system independently and make a book about that. There's so many great hands-on activities that you can do, and when you're ready to review, remember those websites that I mentioned like Quiz and Kahoot. The final subject for a day of online learning for me would be ELA, and I'd have about 30 to 45 minutes of it. Now, there are literally so many fun things that you can do to teach ELA through distance learning. One of my favorites is to start a book club. So you can assign students a novel study. Each student can have the book. If you're worried about each of your students having access to the same book, check out Epic Books for Kids. It's a free resource with thousands of books that you can assign digitally, but assign each student the same book and certain pages to read every day. Then, using Google Classroom, you can host a discussion with your students each day where they're talking about the things that they are reading and sharing ideas. You can also use things like Google Docs to have them summarize the chapter that they read, or do an end of the book project where they make a slideshow using Google Slides. This is a really great option. Students love it and it's a lot of fun. Another option for ELA is to use magazines such as Times for Kids and have them read all of the articles. Then you can create a Google form and assess what they read. You can also have them summarize information or have them research an article that they read a little bit further and do a writing assignment with them. Now, if you don't have a subscription to something like Time for Kids, that's totally okay. There are so many free ELA resources online where you can find free articles that are leveled for your students to read. I've included a link in the description with a blog post that I wrote about ELA resources, and you can find all kinds of resources in that blog post, so make sure to check that out. I hope at this point you're feeling a little less overwhelmed when it comes to online learning, and you know what a day of online learning should look like, and you have lots of ideas for how to teach with online learning. Now, if you still have any questions, feel free to leave your questions in the comments and I'd be happy to answer them. And also check out the links in the description. I've provided links to lots of blog posts about online learning and free resources you can use with online learning. And finally, don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel so that you never miss any of the latest teaching tips and ideas. Until next time, happy teaching.